Touchdown with Aaron Masemola. On the bench with local legends. Your questions, your heroes.
Welcome to the Touchdown with Aaron Masemola, and yes, it is yet another exciting opportunity for us to chat all things sport, but most importantly, today we're talking about a sport that some people might find incredibly surprising. Usually young kids do this for fun, but apparently these days skateboarding is actually a sport. Now I'm joined by a young man. He's just 23 years old and he's an Olympic street skateboarder. His name is Brandon Valjalo. He's joining me today on the Touchdown. Brandon, how are you doing today?
How's it, Aaron? Yeah, no, doing great. I'm a little bit restless because I'm trying to get off of this injury and pretty much get back towards sooner or later, put in the work and hopefully, come back to competing, getting back into the scene and hopefully going out and competing in Europe again.
Definitely. We would love to see you on the circuit as soon as possible. But I would like for us to take a step back in terms of your sport and how you actually fell in love with the sport of skateboarding. And when I say that, it feels incredibly weird because for me, skateboarding is usually for kids and they do it for fun. But for you, you've turned your passion for skateboarding into a sport. How did that come about?
Okay, so pretty much in the beginning, I'm sure it starts out this way for everybody that gets into it, but you get a skateboard, you put your foot on it, and then I guess from the age of 3 years old, we always had a skateboard in the garage because my dad and my brother used to skate back in their day. And then for me, it was just sitting on it and going down the driveway, that's where it began. And then the moment I started watching some YouTube videos of guys and comparing myself best 9-year-old skateboarder in the world, and then I'd watch the videos and then I'd see what these people are doing and then I'd go outside and attempt to learn the tricks myself. And I would like to say that I fell in love with it the moment I landed my first kickflip. So if anyone wants to get into skateboarding, just learn the first trick and then once you get that down, it's over. It's just for life.
Absolutely beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about inspiration because I think for many of us, we think about Tony Hawk in terms of being the godfather of skateboarding. Who was that person for you that just inspired you to strive for more in the sport of skateboarding?
Okay, so for me, when I was a really young kid, I used to watch an MTV show called Life of Ryan. And it was all about Ryan Sheckler, which was one of my favorite skaters and biggest inspiration growing up. And it's so crazy to me just to think about how skateboarding has taken me from the point of watching this guy to actually competing with him and then being the one that qualified in the Olympics over somebody that I inspired and aspired to be like. But I definitely think it was from those early ages that he was the one. I even got the nickname Baby Shex when I was younger. And I used to pretty much ride the same skateboard as him, try look the same as him, and just I was inspired by what he was doing. And pretty much his whole lifestyle of just competing in contests like X Games. And I knew for me that I wanted to get there one day. And it started from super young, watching it with my mom, trying to tell my mom, okay, mom, one day you're going to be my manager. Let's make it a reality. And then I guess from there on out, I was just addicted to progressing and being the best version of myself. And every single day I went out there, I started missing more school extramural sports and just going home and wanting to skate on the street outside my house with a whole bunch of little rails, different obstacles to practice. And I guess I would pretty much only go in once the lights would turn on, around 6:30 p.m. But I'd be skating so hard that my legs and my feet would literally hurt. And I'd be like, okay, now it's cool. Now I can go in and do it all again tomorrow.
Absolutely beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about the different types of skateboarding. I know that you're a street skateboarder, but what are the other various types of skateboarding that you actually get out there? And why did you specifically choose street skateboarding?
Okay, so there's a couple of different categories that we could go into. There's obviously street skateboarding, which is what I do, and that's the core of skateboarding. It's pretty much the easiest way to explain it is the natural architecture that you'd find around the world is our playgrounds. So things that weren't necessarily built for skateboarding, you'd go into the streets and you'd find a way to recreate our art on those obstacles. And that's pretty much where it began. If you look at the history of skateboarding, it was Rodney Mullen, which was in the freestyle kind of skateboarding, which those guys are really, really technical. And it's impressive to see how many spins they can do on the same spot, like landing on the truck sideways called Primo and doing a whole bunch of different variations. It's insane. But yeah, so freestyle skateboarding, street skateboarding, park skateboarding, which would be mostly transition, and you would see a whole float would kind of look like an empty swimming pool if you think about it. And then you have vertical skateboarding, which is what Tony Hawk specialized in. Did the first ever 900 in the X Games contest, so that's what he was well known for back in the day. And then you have the mega ramp, which is insane. Some skaters called Bob Burnquist, Danny Way, those guys go in on those obstacles, and it's basically just a really huge ramp that goes down and a huge gap in between the ramp. And then you land on the platform, and then you go, and there's a huge quarter pipe, which is about, I don't even know how many feet. But when you stand at the top, you don't want to look down. That's how high it is. Really intimidating. But yeah, so those are the different categories. And I would say I pretty much got into street skateboarding because in South Africa, in terms of the facilities that we had available to us, we didn't really have much option to, I guess, practice in parks from a really age, and like have the bowls that are accessible. And if you look at it being in America for myself while I was there, you can see that the swimming pools are built different that are still skatable. So if you drain the pools, you can. Whereas in South Africa, pools, you can't really drain them. They're built like at 90 degrees with the walls rather than having a nice transition up to the pool coping. So I guess I got into street just because that was what I was exposed to from a young age. And that's also what was accessible to me when I went to skate parks. It was always rails, stairs, ledges, a whole bunch of other stuff that I would be able to find while I'm out in the normal everyday life streets.
Now, street skateboarding has also brought you a lot of success, we have to admit. I mean, you going to the 2020 Olympic Games in Japan was an incredible experience. But the one thing that I would like to talk about is you went to the Olympic Games, but you also had a broken arm. Tell us about how that came about and, of course, your experience at the Olympics.
Okay, so to start off, I broke my scaphoid in October 2020, the first time. And then I guess I was a little bit ignorant towards the orthopedic surgeon, and I decided after 10 days my cast was too dirty. It smelled bad because I was still skating with it on, and I pulled it off. So it wasn't recommended. I recommend it, guys. Listen to your orthopedic surgeon. But basically, I just put on a wrist splint while I was skating, and it got to a point where I thought I could take it off. Everything was okay, all right. And moving forward, I still was skating, but obviously skateboarding is so dangerous and technically challenged that sometimes you fall. And most of the time you will be falling while you're trying to do something new. Yeah. If you're not falling, you're not pushing the limits. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, what happened was we went to Tokyo, qualified, got there. I was super excited. The skate park was amazing. The obstacles were huge, which is probably the biggest obstacles that have ever been in a competitive contest before. Which is obviously, the Olympics, it's always bigger and better. It has to be, So for the first ever debut at Tokyo, skateboarding now being added, it was the perfect training ground for us to be able to put on a show for everyone. And then looking back at the training and everything, I still had my wrist guard on because I was still trying to protect it. And without it, I wouldn't feel as safe and comfortable to be able to push my limits, And the thing is, instead of doing all the biggest tricks that you have practiced for the competition in the best trick section, what you do is 2 days before the contest, you go in that practice session, you throw down all your best tricks and you work on the best section, because then you still have a day of recovery before the competition, so your legs can be at 100%. So looking back at it, pretty much had the best training session of my life 2 days before the Olympics. I was at my peak. I was super excited. And this was actually our longest training session, right? So we had an hour and 15 minutes where normally the training sessions would be around 45 minutes. And in the Tokyo heat at that time, it was ridiculous. Bordering on like 40 degrees Celsius. It was humid. All the other athletes had cooling vests around them. They were like making sure they were in the shade and everything. And me, being from South Africa, I'm like, okay. The conditions aren't so bad. It's always hot in the summer over here. And for people that use, it's too hot to skate as an excuse, I'm always telling them, hey, bro, that's not going to help you land your tricks, So pretty much for me, I was out there. I finished my training session within 45 minutes. And by that, I mean, I did all my lines. I did all the best tricks already. And I was comfortable, And then I looked out at the skate park from the sidelines and I saw everybody else still on the course. And I was like, wait, maybe I haven't done enough. And then I forced myself to go back out into the heat to go push myself and keep doing my tricks. And I guess when it came down to the last minute of the practice session. I was at the top of the big section, and I thought to myself, let me do this best trick one more time. And it was on the biggest obstacle, the 13 stair handrail, which was also the gap to rail. And pretty much for me, I was like, okay, last trick, let's go, But in my mind, I'm telling myself, don't hurt yourself. And the thing is, mentally, the sport is way more challenging than even it is physically. You need to be in the right mental space approaching every trick. You need to be confident. You need to not worry about the external factors. So me approaching that trick already with that mindset, thinking about the wind, I wasn't focused on the trick at hand. And what happened was when my board was flipping into the rail, I caught it upside down and I put it on top of the rail. And from there, my grip tape pretty much slid on the rail, but then I fell from the top of it all the way down on my wrist and broke my wrist in 2 places. So the distal radius, and then I broke the scaphoid again, but this time shattered it. So just had to have surgery about 2.5 weeks ago. But we're on the mend. And at the end of the day, it definitely did take a hit to my confidence, but I was there. I wanted to be in that position. There was nothing that was going to stop me from competing at the Olympic Games because I'd worked so hard to get there. And it was also a history or historical event for skateboarding, specifically being in the Olympics for the first time. Very controversial topic as well amongst the industry. But we went out there and they saw, and it actually opened up skateboarding to a new market of people that have seen it now, that they can actually appreciate the art for what it is. And the experience overall in Tokyo, it was just amazing. Besides for breaking my wrist, I took that knock. The medical team at Team Mzansi said to me, they don't recommend me skating. I was like, what do you mean I don't need my wrist to skate? You know what I'm saying? I was like, I only need my legs. It's fine. As long as I stay on my board, I'll be good to go. And that was the mentality I went into it. I was happy to be there. It was an honor to be able to represent SA, and just being around so many like-minded individuals and the best athletes in the world at what they do. It was just an incredible experience. But the one thing we did miss was the fans. And
Definitely.
That was the one thing that was a little bit different. You're skating the contest, but at the end of the day, it was just cameras, not any energy or vibe that you could hear from the atmosphere, which was a bit challenging. And we know for ourselves as skateboarders, we're feeding off of the crowd's energy constantly to be able to push our limits and basically fully commit to everything that we do to make the crowd, I guess, hype us up.
Oh, absolutely amazing. But you talk about breaking barriers in terms of taking a sport like skateboarding to the Olympic Games. I would love to ask you this question. We've seen the success of the X Games bringing a new dynamic of success and excitement to extreme sports. Could we see more extreme sports being included at the Olympic Games?
Yes, 100%. I feel like the Olympic Games and all the traditional sports that they had included already, I think the younger generation are looking for something new, something exciting, and action sports definitely do offer that, and it makes the Olympic Games more relevant for the youth. I personally reason to believe that. And also at the same time, it's just the spectator value of extreme sports is so significant compared to ordinary sports. When you're sitting there, you're like, okay, what's going to happen? Will he land it? What was that? Actually, it moved too quick for me to process it in my mind. Can I see a slow motion replay of that, Or, okay, is he going to land or is he going to fall? But either way, it's entertainment at its finest. So I feel like it definitely adds great value to the Olympics. The Olympics adds great value to the growth of the sport as well, which is really exciting. Super stoked to see what's going to happen in South Africa in the future as well. I'd like to see new generations coming through and also being able to give back with the brands that support me to the young generations, focus on the youth development, make sure the structure and the coaches are all there to support the team, and basically just breed a future Olympic gold medalist from South Africa.
Definitely. You talk about possibly breeding an Olympic gold medalist from South Africa. To wrap up the conversation, Brandon, I would love to ask you this question. What lies ahead for you in the sport? Because trust me, South Africans would love you at the Paris Olympic Games and, of course, maybe claiming a gold medal as well.
Yes, 100%. So for me, it's pretty much at the moment back to the drawing boards. I just want to make sure I nurture and I take care of this injury so that it doesn't bother me in the future. And then after that, back to square one, back to training, getting back over there in the skate parks, working on the single tricks that I actually want to do that are my signature tricks as well, that have never been done, that will score well in contests, and pretty much just work at it for the next 3 years, qualify for Paris, and hopefully bring back a medal for SA, because, you know, there's nothing I felt more than wanting to hold the gold medal that belonged to me when I was standing with my friend Yuta. I was like, wow, you know, like, just that feeling already of seeing him holding it, I was just like, that's what I want, you know. So in the next 3 years is pretty much putting my head down, focusing on what I need to achieve and what I need to do. But obviously that's the big overall goal. And for me, the small goals that lead up to it will be the daily operational kind of goals that are going to set me forward to achieving that big goal in the end of the day. So a lot of that. And also at the same time, I'm just going to try to do what I can for the industry and just pioneer South African skateboarding for the youth. And yeah, just stay tuned and see. I like to show people what I do more than I like to speak about it. So yeah, just stay tuned for the future moves.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us on the Touchdown. And of course, thank you for being such a phenomenal brand ambassador, not only for South Africa, but also the sport of skateboarding. Thank you for your time. And of course, we wish you all the best. And I'm certain that we'll see you in 2024 at the Paris Olympic Games.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Thanks for having me. And thanks for, I guess, showing your target market and your group of people that watch the show more about skateboarding. And guys, if you have a young kid and you're watching this show, get him a skateboard. Trust me, it's going to change his life, and it's going to help him progress and be the best version of himself every single day. So yeah, thank you so much.
Touchdown with Aaron Masemola. On the bench with local legends. OFM Sport. The personalities behind the plays.